previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in once again to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. I'm coming to you now at 6 p.m. Eastern, USA, but I'm all the way out here in Singapore, and the time here is 7 a.m. in the morning. But have no fear. I am very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. I had an early night last night. I've been awake for at least 3 hours, so I'm raring to go. So without further ado, what are we up to here? Well, you saw the recap. We're still on what I call a season of Goliaths, right? You don't want to see me. Oh, actually, I'm trying a new layout this week. Did you notice you can see my studio here, the comics behind me? I normally have, not a green screen, but I normally have like an image behind me of this show and Late Night After Attack. But I don't have a green screen, and it's been looking a bit blurred. So I thought I'd go natural this week. And if anyone has any objections to my background, if you think it looks terrible, you prefer what I had before, please drop me a line. I'm going to try this background this week. I'm going to watch it back later and see how it looks. Hopefully it doesn't look too bad. Hopefully. So where are we? Here. Let's switch it up. So you see here, we got a clash of the Goliaths. We got Black Goliath versus original Goliath. And before that, remember we had a session on Giant Man and the other Goliath. So we're going to get these two all the way up through coloring and inking. Right now, where are we? We are rendering. We are spotting. Right, we went through all the stages already. Got a quick recap. So here we are. We're doing Goliath in the background. So let's switch off Black Goliath. Let's see what we got here. Remember, we always start with a skeleton. We always flesh out. Remember, this is Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, right? So the idea is you get your pencils and paper, the styluses at the ready every week, and you try to follow along with me as we go through various drawing exercises. So we start with a skeleton, then fleshing out. You saw this in the intro if you were here from the beginning. Then as I always instruct my students, try to find the center of an object, right? We do that with a blue line. You find the center of each limb. Then the dimensions. You establish where the top, sides, and front of any image might be, or any part of an image, part of a character. Then we do contours. Contours are the directions of various things in your image. This is very useful on anatomy, but it can kind of pertain to objects as well. So we found the direction of what's going on, then we started to add the detail. So we get rid of, whoops, have I moved my image? Maybe we did. So then we did the detail. Now we're spotting. We're putting in the blacks. Now I'm working digitally, so I have the luxury of this. If you're working traditionally, of course, all your pencils are all on the same paper. If you're working digitally, you have the option to do this. Is there a plus or minus to it? Not really. But as I do a lot of tutorials, it's useful for this reason. So let's get back to our spotting. I got my pencil here. Remember, I must always zoom in because it's more interesting for you guys at home if you can see what I'm doing more closely. Now, there's something called stabilization in this software. I'm using Clip Studio Paint. And that can make life a lot easier because keeping a steady hand digitally is very different to traditionally. It is much easier to keep a steady hand traditionally, in my opinion. Now you see, with the spotting, we are actually, let me make sure I follow the same procedure here. If we go back to the original Goliath, right, we got the detail, and the spotting goes over a lot of the key lines at the same time as well, where we're finishing the rendering, if you like. Oops, switch that back on, switch it off. So with the spotting, I'm also doing part of the rendering and sorting out the key lines and making them a nice thickness. Now, as customary with superhero life, the light source that I'm doing here is coming from the supposed point of impact. They're coming together, yeah? So I'm imagining that the light source is somewhere here, okay? Of course, this is totally imaginary, but it adds to the atmosphere of your image if you're dealing with superheroes and such like. I would say the first artist that I noticed doing this kind of thing was probably Jack Kirby. For those of you maybe perhaps new to superhero drawing, Jack Kirby is known as the king of superhero drawing. He was around from between the Second World War until I think he passed. When did Jack Kirby pass away? I'm trying to think. It was quite some time ago. I think it was the 90s. I think he did carry through to the 90s, possibly the 80s, 1980s. So you can see I'm putting shadows on this side of Goliath because the light source is coming from the center. On a previous episode of Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, remember I went through the different kinds of rendering and I explored two particular styles of rendering, which were spikes and gradation. And here I'm using the gradation technique. You get a large area of black or of spotting, and you gradually come into the light. You do the hatching or the shading coming out from the black in an adjacent or gradual manner. Whereas before, I used to do spikes all the time, and you take spikes to come into the light area. Now, Black Goliath has this strange strap. Sorry, not Black Goliath. It is Avengers Goliath. He has a strange strap going across his chest. I must say, when you look at old superhero costumes, you hear language like camp or corny. And I have to say, I have no concept of camp or corny. I love the costumes of the Silver and Bronze Age. Yes, I'm a dinosaur. So here, I'm going to put in a bit of shading on this chest band. Now his chest is showing here. It's going to put a bit of shadow coming out from the armpit. Then he's got this thing going across the top half of his body, which is actually quite dark. His chest is actually exposed. Okay? So let's go. This part up here is actually a quite dark kind of, it's dark blue. Maybe it's meant to be black. You know how in superhero comics, Black is often designated by dark blue. So this is quite a dark area. His ears are covered. So the light source is coming from in front. So there's going to be a lot of shadow behind. Then it comes into the light. Comes into the light. Out the light. Out into the darkness. And let me put the key lines in on this face. Nice. We put a shadow behind here, coming in to where the point of contact would be. Shadow here. I'm going to drop in an accent of a shadow down here. Someone asked me recently, where do I know to put the blacks or the shading? It's all to do with shapes, to be honest. Right? If you know the shape of something and you know where the light source is, there's only certain places that the light can get. So the more you understand form, shapes, and the way light behaves, you got creative license. But by and large, there's only certain places that light can fall. It's coming from a certain area. And that's pretty much what dictates where the shadows would be. And I tell you what, if you get it too incorrect, if you do a piece of shading that isn't following a basic shape or something, it will show up immediately. It can look very incorrect. Now, Goliath, you can't see his eyes in his costume. They're just white, like Spider-Man, you could say. And as I said, the mask is kind of dark, so I'm going to put a shadow behind here and to accentuate his expression. I'm going to bring a shadow into his cheekbone. Put this in darkness. Now, of course, I'm drawing digitally, but I've got an extreme kind of pencil texture because I still like the organic feel of traditional drawing. So I do try to emulate that when I'm working digitally. Put a shadow on this side. Good. Let's just embellish that face. This is skin. Maybe you don't have an extreme light source. Okay, he's got clenched teeth. Put a shadow on the bottom lip here. Let's exaggerate the expression a bit. Make him angry. Okay, now the hair. So his hair, it's kind of brushed backwards, you could say. The light source is coming from the front, so I'm not going to put too much detail at the front of the head here. I'm going to put in more of it towards the back. His hair's going backwards. And this Goliath has blonde hair, so we're not going to put too much. We're not going to put too much rendering into this hair. But the bulk of the shadow, I'm going to put towards the back of the head, or the light sources coming from the front, where the point of impact between the Goliaths would be. This going backwards. I'm doing an up-down stroke kind of technique for the hair. And to put a bit of motion, we can make a few bits of hair kind of flying off. Good. So we've done the top part of Goliath. Now his chest here, I'm going to put this bit more rendering on that, on the chest area. And I'm going to put a little bit of thickness on this chest band. We've got one comment here. Oh, Acres of Movies back in the house again. Best thriller ever. Now, what are you referring to, Acres? Or was it? You told me your name is not Stacy. It's Stacy. Okay. Favorite 90s comic book? Good question. I'm gonna have to say it was X-Men. Because I'll tell you a little story. Shall I? I was a big collector back in the 1970s, and I stopped in the 1980s. Got married and all that, had a family, and I stopped reading comics. And my cousin, he comes to my house. No, I'm going too fast. Let me back up. There was what we call a newsagent's across the road from my house. And I went in there one day, and X-Men #1, the cover by Jim Lee, was in the shop. And I took one look at that cover, and I was back. I started buying X-Men. I've been out for over 10 years. This was the early 1990s. And I had a cousin that was still pretty much into it. And I met with him, and he says to me, I think it was a bit of time after that. He says, have I heard of Image Comics? And I said, who the hell are they? And he was telling me all about these guys causing waves, man. Image Comics. That was sometime after that, actually, because by that time Jim Lee had split with Bob Liefeld and the rest of the gang. But my favorite 90s comic, I'd have to say, was X-Men. One second. Let me look back at my messages here. See, I'm notorious for that. I put that message on the screen, and I forgot to remove it. Okay, hold on, what's this? That's my message to the producer. I'm the world's worst producer. My God, who's this? Hello, and thanks for, that's right, it's Stacy. Stacy's a regular. Oh, thanks so much for joining in again, Stacy. Going on. Hey, Jerry. Oh, it's Kerry. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're learning something. Okay, Kerry's got a question here. Question: how do you measure body proportions for a character in the position yours is? I think I was meant to say yours is in. Good question, Kerry. Okay, very briefly. Right, let's have a quick look at some proportions here. Because it's funny you should mention that. I'm going to shorten this upper leg. All right, I'm going to answer your question directly in a moment, yeah? Look at this. I moved my sketch. Hang on. Let me put this back in position. That should be down here. I moved something. Right. I looked at my drawing during the week. And this upper leg is a bit long. So what I'm going to do is, Eclipse Studio Paint, you can grab the entire folder and it will grab all of the layers inside. Now, last I checked, Photoshop couldn't do this. Maybe it can now. Okay, good. So, in terms of measuring body proportions, this is how I generally kind of gauge it. Okay, let's have a look. I'm going to open a new document. Let's have a quick run through here. How do you gauge body proportions? Yeah. So here is a new page. Okay, take note of this. The most important bone in the body, I would say, is the spine. Yeah. Now your hips of course, different characters have different dimensions, right? But you want your hips to be the same width. Start with roughly the same width as the shoulders. And this line here, the width of the hips is about 1.5 times the length of the spine. So I'm going to copy paste, right? This is the hips, correct? So you can see that it's just under 1.5 times, but you know, different bodies have different proportions. But approximately 1.5 times the width of the hips is the spine. Then when you come to the shoulders, make the shoulders, in terms of this kind of construction, about the same distance as the width of the hips. So we put in the joints. This is how we measure the proportions. I take everything from the spine. So the hips are roughly, the width of the hips is roughly, hang on, I think I need a cup of coffee. The spine is roughly 1.5 times the length of the hips or the shoulders. Yeah? Then come to the upper leg. Make the upper leg approximately the same length as the spine. Roughly speaking, different characters, different dimensions, but this is generic. Then I put in my underpants. Now we're talking about male or female here, okay? The build of your character will depend on how you shape the body after this. Then comes the knees, and I make my lower leg roughly the same as the upper leg. And sometimes I get very extreme, and I might make my lower leg slightly longer than the upper leg. Then I put in a node to show the ankle, and then give yourself a stick to signify the foot. When it comes to the arms, your rib cage is somewhere halfway down the body. And if you dig your elbow into your abdomen, the elbow comes about halfway down. So the elbow is going to be about here. And you can put your hands in your pockets. Your pockets are going to be just below the hip. So you know your wrist is going to be somewhere around here. There's the upper arm, there's the lower arm, and this is a hand dropping down the side. The neck, again, different characters have different length of necks, but make this a reason, not too long, but long enough that we can flesh out the body later. Now, how big is the head? It depends on how tall your character is. Generally speaking, the average adult is around 6 to 7 heads tall. If you're drawing a superhero, you want your character to be around 8 heads tall. But the average person is around 6, 7 heads maximum, right? So let's see how tall I've got this character. Right, I'm gonna copy paste. Right, here's one head. So I'm going to duplicate, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. As I said, around 7 heads tall is the average person. This person's going towards superhero, but if you want him to look very, very powerful, you're looking at around 8 heads. 9 is extremely tall, okay? Good, so then once we've got that, these are basic measurements you can go by. Now, how long you make the limbs on something like this, that's a tough one because there's a bit of foreshortening here. So of course, when something's coming towards you, it's going to shorten. But you'll find that the dimensions here roughly matches this. If that answers your question. So start with the spine, and your spine, when you put your hips and your shoulders in, the spine should be roughly 1.5 times the length of your hips and your shoulders. And from there, you can gauge the rest of the limbs. Okay, upper legs, length of the spine, lower legs the same. Elbows in the rib cage, which is about halfway down the spine. and then the wrists are just below the hip. Imagine putting your hands in your pockets. Then the length of the neck, again, that depends on the build of your character, but make it a decent protrusion. Because if we flesh this out, okay, I'm going to put the neck in. Okay, let's make this more of a feminine kind of character, okay? Then we've got the shoulders coming in. We round the hips. There, come around the hips as in a feminine form. And quite often when I draw a skeleton, my skeleton is pretty much the outer form of the leg. We put in the chest line. So the body comes up, roughly speaking here, but now we're going to shape it. And you know, comics are all about exaggerations, right? So she's going to have a very neat, tiny waist. In fact, some of the waists that I see in comic books, I think to myself, is that really possible? Then the inner leg will come in here. Now, the stance, I haven't really paid much attention to the actual stance of the lady, but we can see this arm or her hand is firmly on her thigh, and this elbow, the way I've drawn it, it's as if this elbow kind of goes back, and then the arm is resting on the thigh. Right now, this is a very rough kind of construction. You might have to fine tune it afterwards. So I'm going to bring between her legs down a bit. Now remember, your joints are always the smallest area. So you want to come in where the knees will be. Make sure you bring in the limb sufficiently. Can you see this outer arm here is higher than the inner arm? Now a mirror of this on the legs is, hold on, let me slim this. Let me slim that down a bit. Sorry. When the inner leg comes down, you want the outer leg to be higher. The same is the outer forearm. That makes sense? Remember I said about joints? Make sure you come in sufficiently for the ankle. So I'm going to take this thigh out, bring it in for where the knee is going to be somewhere around here. Go out, inner leg down. Always remember that. Let me come into the ankle area. Now feet, if you were here for like one of my first episodes, we start with a triangle. That helps to shape the foot. Feet are very confusing because they're foreshortened. Okay, remember a triangle. That gives you a good base start. Because feet are coming towards us, that's why they're so difficult. That's why the foreshortening. So there you can see the dimensions of this girl. Of course, I'm a superhero freak. So all my characters tend to look a bit powerful. Ladies' chests are probably a little bit large. But I digress. So roughly that is how I measure dimensions. It's by the spine. So let's have a look back here. See if there are any more questions. Okay. He is not lying. What's this? He is not lying. He is an artist, not a producer. I think that's someone named Pops being cheeky. Good dog. All right. We got another question here from Kerry. Okay, what's this? When a character is stood, it's measured by head size. Okay, but when a character is in a different pose, like crouched or dynamic pose, I can't find how you measure body proportions. Correct. That's because of foreshortening. I think that just comes from practice, right? And imagining, in practice and seeing what happens. Okay, how many heads tall is a crouched superhero? Well, that's the thing, you see, depending on how much the character is crouching. It could be anything from 3 to 6 or whatever. Um, also, I read this. I read the question, but didn't put it on screen. Yeah, how many heads tall is a crouched superhero? Yeah, it depends on the stance. And also, if a character is crouched and the head is coming towards you, then the head is also going to be larger. You know, foreshortening completely changes all the rules. And that just comes from a lot of practicing and looking all the time. Damn, man. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure. Not sure what that means. Good. Feet and hands are confusing. Yes, they are. We had an episode on feet and hands right at the beginning. I just did a bit of feet here with a triangle. I'll go to a hand in a second. I thought you all enjoyed drawing boobs. Well, that goes without saying, darling. Okay, hey Pops. Yes, that is indeed Pops lurking in the shadows. It means an ad player as you talk. Oh, sorry. Well, you should jolly well subscribe. You cheapskate, you. Just joking, of course. Right, okay, hands. A quick way of drawing hands here is, think of the palm. You draw a rounded square for a palm. And remember, shapes and skeletons, right? Remember we started this with a skeleton? Same principle with a hand. You get your knuckles in, and remember, okay, if we make this the little finger, this becomes the big finger. And make the big finger roughly the same depth as the palm. You know the index finger is going to be shorter. That's going to be somewhere the same length as the ring finger. And the little finger is noticeably shorter than that one. Now, something to bear in mind. For you fine ladies watching, if you hold your hand up, you might notice that your index finger is going to be similar in height to the ring finger. Or it might actually be longer than the ring finger. Now, for all you guys out there watching, you might notice that your index finger, it's highly likely that your index finger is shorter than your ring finger. Right? A male hand, this index finger is going to be down here on average. Now, this isn't written in stone, but generally speaking, it's true for most people. I'm not sure why that is, but apparently testosterone has an effect on the length of your index finger. So I think if you're a female with a lot of testosterone, your index finger might be quite short. By the same token, if you're a male with a lot of estrogen, your index finger might be quite long. Better to know how that gets me, right? I didn't make the rules of genetics. So here we've got the index finger would be here, right? We treat this as a feminine hand. And a thumb, if you look at your hand, the thumb, well, it's a closed palm. The thumb just comes past the base of the fingers. And you know there's a joint here, and there's a joint out here, then it joins back to the palm down here. So let's put in a few nodes here to give us our joints. This is your wrist here. And then the palm is curved. So you've got a curved action with the joints. And the last joint is the shortest by a long way. So we've got a joint here, here, whoops, there, up here, there. Roughly speaking, this would give us our fingers. That thumb comes down around here. So let's flesh this out. We put a feminine hand. So what we've got is some nice slender fingers. Nothing too brutish. So we put in, I'll do the palm. This is the palm. Then it comes down for the next finger. Just a basic shape. We're not worrying too much about the ins and outs of the joints, etc. Then that comes in. You get the lower palm down here. So we'll just go back to the index finger. There. Then come down for the palm. Here's the thumb. Come around for the base. That will join up somewhere around here. You know, we get these marks here like that. So that's a very quick way of constructing a hand. That's just a flat palm. If the fingers are bent, you can put in another shape again, representing the palm. So let's say it's a rectangle. Okay, this is your palm, thinking in terms of skeleton in shape. So here, we're going to put in one joint there, another joint there, and a joint here. Let me zoom in. So foreshortening, brutal. Okay, we're going to put, okay, let's bend these fingers. Let's get a bit more adventurous, shall we? We're going to bend the fingers. Now, there's something called an artistic footprint. I believe we all have it. What I mean by that is, I have a tendency to draw index fingers too large. So I have to keep an eye on that. Look for your weak spots and pay special attention that you're not making that mistake each time. So there, can you see that basic shape? Here is the palm, right? That's the front, that's the thickness of the palm and the back of the palm here. And you can see, here's a knuckle, 2, 3, 4 knuckles. Here's the finger, the skeleton. There we go. Index finger. And of course, the middle finger is the biggest. That little finger is a bit big, but I'll shorten that later. And it's foreshortening, they're coming towards us. So now I'm gonna put that down in opacity. So let's flesh them out. This is the top of the hand here, okay? So here's the knuckle, then it comes down to the finger. Here's another finger. Now let's put in that thickness of the finger. Okay, there's the first finger. Here's another knuckle. Let's put, and this is the middle finger. So you've got to make sure, remember I just mentioned that my artistic footprint is, I keep making my index fingers too large. I'm always careful of that. So there's that middle finger. Knuckle. Here's that ring finger. And of course, as the fingers get further away from us, they're going behind. Remember I mentioned that my little finger is a bit large. So I'm gonna fix that now. So here's the finger coming in. It's gonna go into the palm there. This is the top one because this thumb is coming towards us. So there's a lot of foreshortening involved there. The back of the palm is going to go up there, and the top of the hand is going to be up there. Now, because of foreshortening, the wrist is going to be all the way down here and then up there. So just to give this a bit more meaning, let's put in the fingernails. So the thumb's going to come towards us, so the fingernail is shaped like that. But here, now it's going away from us, right? There. That's just very roughly, very quickly. But basically, it's starting with skeletons, and then you flesh them out. Hopefully that helps with your construction of hands. Just get used to doing the shape and stakes. Let's see what if I've missed anything here. What's this? Trying to draw Superman that's just landing on ground. I have sworn so much during this. Okay. Okay, let me see if we can have a quick look at that in a moment, right? Trying to draw Superman that's just landing on ground. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing that I really hate about superheroes landing on the ground. Okay, for the new Drastico viewers, I can't even read that. Who is Drastico? No idea who you are, sir or lady. Carry again. Also, comic-related Jean Grey has some odd hand poses in some of the art that shows her. No, superheroes always push things to the max. You get some really strange contortions of the fingers and the hands. I'll have to check those out. Watching digital is like watching an Etch-a-Sketch. Because you can't really see. Yeah, you can't see my hand moving, can you? Yeah, it is a bit odd. You make it look so easy. Oh, thank you very much. No matter how many times you do this, you do have to concentrate. When you consider that, when you draw something at a certain scale, a few millimeters can make a huge difference to something being really off. And if you bear that in mind, that can be quite nerve-wracking. You really do have to concentrate a lot of the time. But yes, of course, the more you do it, it does become easier because you've done it so many times before. Sorry, before I forget. You mentioned Superman landing on the floor. Let's have a look. Here's an empty piece of space. So I'm going to guess that your Superman... Okay, you did... What's that? You did swear at it once. Oh no, this is a family show, Kerry. It's a family show. Well, your Superman landing, is his face facing downwards, or is he looking at the camera? Okay, let's start from the head. Okay, here's roughly the head. So I'm gonna get in immediately to why what you're drawing is very difficult. First thing, we're gonna do it as a 90-degree shot. Okay, so let's find the center of this head. We've got to find the center. You can see my head is not symmetrical. Shame on you, boy. Shame on you. And then you call yourself an artist. Right, so here's the spine. But there's some absolutely brutal foreshortening going on here. Right? Good. Kerry says, looking at camera. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let's go back to this head quickly. Let's put in the eye line, which is roughly halfway down our fundamental shape. So now we know Superman is looking at the camera, but he's just landed and he's crouching. The most difficult thing here is the foreshortening in the body. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the eye line down very slightly because he's leaning forward. Now we don't want it to break his neck, but unless he's really straining, his eye line cannot be 90 degrees looking at us. That would be too uncomfortable. He's looking at us, but he's more looking up at us, you could say, from a crouching position. Now the problem with this, if we draw through the object, his neck is actually back, it's behind his head. That means that if we're going to stick with a skeleton. His shoulders are now up here. Okay, his neck is behind, we can't see his neck. And he's quite a buff guy, so his shoulders are up there. So here comes the tricky part. Just how long do we make his spine? Because I want us to still see his logo, I'm going to put his waist there. And Kerry, if there's one thing you take away from this, yeah, okay, behind this, some more stance here. I was imagining this, Kerry says. Looking at camera, one knee bent and one knee in air with foot on floor, hands on floor either side of him. Yes, that classic Iron Man landing pose. Yep. Okay, so let's take a look back. Now, Kerry, the single most difficult thing here is you've already mentioned that his hands are on the floor. That means that you have to draw the hands before you go anywhere near the body. Yep, the floor is actually a prop now. Generally speaking, if you draw something, draw the props first. You already know that his hands are on the floor. So, here's his shoulder. I'm going to put one arm going to the side. I'm going to make them slightly going to the side and flat, almost flat on the floor, but not quite. one that side, and one this side. Now, as you're the art director, if something in the stance starts to look very off, it would be your job to come in and say, hey boy, that's not what I'm telling you to draw. Would you please make that change? Right. Let's just check back here, make sure. I'm listening and watching carefully. Good girl. Right. So now we know that his hands are touching the floor. That means that if we've got a bit of depth of perception here, his foot or his knee cannot go past this line because we want his hands in the foreground. That's dictated to us. We've got no choice in this matter. It cannot, within reason, go past that line. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the knee here. I'm going to designate that the knee is going to be somewhere here. And I'm going to designate that a foot is here, coming towards us. Now, this is only one stance. Of course, there's going to be, you can always make changes, but I'm going with this to start with. Now, looking at the size of his head, and knowing that the knee touching the floor, he's not kneeling because he's not been punched. He's put his knee on the floor. That means that the knee going down is going to have hardly any foreshortening. Looking at the size of his head's nearer to the camera, okay? I'm going to guess that his upper leg is somewhere that length. So that means that the foot is touching the floor and the lower leg, we know the lower leg is going to be somewhere similar in length to the upper leg that's not foreshortened. So there's the ankle. Here's the foot coming towards us. Here, so here's a wrist, here's an elbow, here's a shoulder. The shoulder, elbow, wrist. We know that this lower leg should be somewhere similar in length to the upper leg that we can see outstretched. So I'm going to put the hip in here, and I'm going to put the knee here. When we come to flesh out later, we will direct these limbs accordingly. So I've already said that I want his body to be a certain length in foreshortening. I've designated here. Now, Kerry, if there's one thing that I want you to watch extremely closely now, is the degree of foreshortening that we're dealing with. His body is ridiculously foreshortened. So I'm going to put in his hips at this trajectory. Right, we're sketching. Right, we can change some of this stuff later. But I'm going to begin with it something like that, which tells us that this leg is foreshortened like that. That is as brutal as you're going to get. Now, his arms are in front, so his arms are out the side of his knee. So if you draw this and the knee is too far over, it's going to obstruct the arm. There's only one place that his knee can be if the leg is at that angle. If you want to keep the arms there, you are going to have to take his knee and bring it in to leave room for the arms. Okay, think of this methodically. I'm going to make that foot go outwards a little bit more. Now, look at this foreshortening on this leg here. This is one point that's quite exciting. This is interesting, right? The leg is in front of the body and the arm is going to be in front. Can the arm be in front? No, the arm cannot really go in front of the knee. Just checking my messages there. Right, okay. So we can already start to see the stances coming together. If you did that as a matchstick figure, like it is, anyone can tell what you're thinking already. What I say to people is, if you do something at this stage and something doesn't look right, that means it's not right. It should look correct at this stage already. Something should look at least feasible. Okay? So now the foot behind, we've got a depth of feel here to some degree. I'm going to shorten that foot slightly there. That means that the foot on the floor is going to be back here somewhere. which takes that lower leg there. It's foreshortened. We probably won't see this, but I've drawn through the object. Okay, that's the foot. Here's the lower leg. Okay, Kerry, is this making sense so far? Right? So we've got our skeleton. I named this layer SK, the skeleton. So now we go to fleshing out, FO, flesh out. So let's start to roughly start putting our shapes in. Yeah? The most daunting shape here, of course, is the body. So we know that we're looking down on Superman. So I'm going to take his lats up. Here's his shoulder. The lats are up, shoulder. And I'm going to break this body down into segments. Now, his arms, okay, I said his arms are in front. They're in front, but to the side. So, to make sure we don't have too much foreshortening going on, I'm going to angle the upper torso at this angle. Now, this is going to drop into his chest cavity. Now, we got the center of the body, so we know that his chest is going to fall somewhere like here, right? The chest drops down. Yep. Now, the foreshortening here is all of this is his abs. Now, when you do this, you're going to make sure, okay, I'm telling you this, I cannot stress this enough, yeah? Kerry says, yes, so far, so good. Okay, good, right. Remember, right, people, the volume of the body is important. So even his abs, right, let's just put in a little bit of detail for the abs. You're going to make sure they go upwards because there's a volume to the body, right? There's less space between, and you're going to make sure you take them up. There's the ribs. If you don't get this right, you're going to flatten his body. And then the body is going to come up and it's lost to our vision behind. But you've got to make sure you keep this rounded. Let me drop that chest a bit more. I'm not showing the volume of the body. The chest has got to drop, right? The collarbone is dropping in here. We might just see a bit of the neck here. There's the clavicle. I need to say clavicular. That's that YouTuber, clavicular. Clavicle. Right. So we're beginning to see the volume of the body. Let's come to these legs now. What we didn't do on the skeleton is I didn't put my underpants in, right? Because it's so foreshortened. So I'm going to drop in some underpants here to give us a rough feel. So come back to my fleshing out layer. His legs go up. Okay, I'm going to tell you singularly now, Kerry. This is the part of the drawing that most people will get wrong. His hips at this angle is well up behind him. That means that his leg, what you perceive to be his leg, is going to start all the way back up there. Now we come down to his knee. Here's the inner leg coming from the underpants. And there is touching the floor. Now, look at the foot. Remember I drew through the object? All we're going to see of that foot from there is perhaps this. We can see that behind. Now, this foot, okay, now, Kerry, something that I've done here, right, that is very hard to explain. Can you see that that leg is much smaller than his head? I've taken into account the foreshortening of him coming to the camera. That's what makes the pose dynamic. But just how small to make that leg compared to that head? Listen, some doctors said, right, that if you can draw naturally, you are officially on the autistic spectrum. This is where I think a bit of autism helps. I can't tell you how to gauge that apart from practice. Anyway, let me continue. So now we've got this leg. Here's the knee. That's in front of the body. And this foreshortened leg comes up here. And from here, we will start to see the bottom of his leg. There. We take it up to the knee. Now the bottom of the leg is going to start to come under here. But we've got the front of the leg is going to be in the way. I'm going to make that a bit bigger. So here, the trajectory of the lower foot is going to be already like this. So now we can put in the calf, come in, and join that up. I know the outer leg goes out, then it comes in. There. And that lower leg is going to go behind. Now the foot's coming towards us. So the heel is here. So let's do that triangle thing. I'm going to exaggerate this slightly. Okay, now I'm looking at my proportions. I need this foot to drop down a little bit further, somewhere around there. Yeah, that looks about correct. Front of the foot. I think I've got his lower foot a little bit on the skinny side, so the fat side. Let me slim that down slightly. Good. I'm going to turn that foot in very slightly, maybe more in this direction. So the front of the foot is there. Now this foot's coming towards us, so the trajectory is going to be actually, for the foot, will be in that direction. Now, we want the fingers to be either side. Remember I said that the heel is behind, but the feet come forward. And I can imagine that the fingers are going to almost line up with the feet. Actually, no, maybe slightly behind the foot. The front of the foot, not the back of the foot. So I'm going to take an imaginary line about there. I want the fingers to meet there. So here, we've already got the length of the arms. You don't have to worry about that. What you need to do now is put in your palm, which I think we can use a triangle for this. And then put your fingers on the floor. There. That's probably a bit on the small side. Let's make his palm a little bit bigger. Well, I often use a triangle. It's an open hand. So we put in a triangle. And we know that the thumb is going to come over here. Then we're going to have one finger coming down here, another finger there, and there. Good. We can see the rough stance happening already. So now let's flesh this out. We know that this hand is coming towards us. Look at the wrist. So let's put in the upper arm here. Then we join up. There's a lower arm. Actually, Superman. Let's buff him up a bit. And I think I'm guilty of, remember I mentioned that sometimes skeletons are towards the outer part of the fleshing out. So now here, let's draw the other limb. We're going to finish the shoulder muscle there. Then we've got the lats coming up. Okay, I'm drawing the limb just so you can see the different sections. Then the bicep is going to come up here. I must say, I'm impressed with myself today. I'm not drawing this guy overly buff. I have a habit of drawing people way too muscular. I've done the opposite today on Superman. I'm sorry, Superman. I've made you much too thin. Good. So then now we come to fleshing out the hand. So here we got one thumb. And there's foreshortening on this finger. Yeah. See, let's make that a bit steeper. Let's make it a bit steeper. Same with the thumb. Make it really touch down. And here. Remember, middle finger. A bit longer. Now we can put a bit of movement here. We put the ring finger going backwards slightly. Yeah, I made the fingers more steep so they look more like if they're actually touching the floor. So they come to the other side. We see this arm is slightly going behind. So we got the shoulder, like last time. We finished the shoulder muscle there. We got the bicep. There, come to the lower arm. And the outer arm. There, let's put the wrist in. Maybe the outer arm comes outwards. The inner arm is actually a little bit lower. Now I'm going to check the stance in a minute. Good. One finger coming forward. Middle finger is bigger. Ring finger. I'm going to put the little finger just slightly behind. Okay, now the thing is with this, I'm going to say that his hands are a little bit small. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Make this a little bit bigger. How are we doing for time? Oh, still got 25 minutes left. And we got some foreshortening going on this foot here. So I'm going to make this a little bit bulkier there. And I'm going to slightly bulk up this leg as well. And at this stage as well, I will treat his cape as a prop. Right, it's going to fall over the back of his foot. You will see it dropping down over here. You might see it dropping. Let's have a look. It's going to go over his shoulder and it's going to drop. You're going to see it coming down here already. So you're going to see a bit over there. It's going to hook over the back. Actually, it's going to hook over the back of his leg and maybe come down here. Comes over the shoulder, comes down, and then you might see a bit in the depth behind there. It's going to come over the shoulder. Let's put in a quick marker. The cape is going to come somewhere in here. There. Okay, I could fine tune this, I think. I think it could be better. But roughly, Kerry, that's how you can construct. The biggest thing there was you got to treat the floor as a prop because you know where you want his hands and his feet to be. So it's easier to put the head in where the hands and the feet are going to touch the floor and then fill in the rest of the body. Did that make sense? Good. Let me. Okay, good. I shall move on and go back to Goliath. Here. And so my detail is a bit rough here. Get back to the spotting. And remember the light source is coming from slightly above. Now, Goliath actually has quite dark pens. So I'm going to put in a shadow here. For that muscle. Then we put in a bit of hatching coming up. Same here. All right. One message here from Kieran. Thank you, Jerry, for the tutorial. Very helpful. Thank you and appreciate it. You're most welcome. I could have done better on that, actually. I'm not 100% convinced by what I did, but the principles. Sometimes it's the methodology. I wish when I was younger, I didn't understand the concept of drawing a prop first. I'd always draw the character first. But quite often, you should do that. I'll tell you one instance when you should definitely draw the prop first. If you've got a character holding a gun, and the gun, in your imagination, the gun is the most important thing in the image. Now, maybe the gun is coming right towards the camera. It's very foreshortened. Well, you definitely, you need to draw the gun first. And then attach the character. If you try to draw the character first, it's possible, of course it is. But you might end up with an image. Like, how often have we all said, it's not what I had in mind. That's the most common one, where it's not what I had in mind. But you might draw something that's quite nice. It looks acceptable. Your friends think it's a nice drawing. But in your head, in your imagination, something's still not quite right with the way it looks. And that can often result from coming from an angle of drawing characters first and props. Props being treated as secondary objects. I dare say that the more experienced you become, and the more easily you can draw different things, then I wouldn't say for sure that you need to draw the prop first, because you've done it so many times before that you just know what to do. But certainly, if you're at that learning stage, you're drawing stuff and something doesn't look right and all the rest of it. Generally speaking, drawing the prop first can really help. Can help you follow your imagination more easily. Okay, here's Black Goliath. Not Black Goliath. This is Goliath. Is his shoe? No, his shoes actually. His boots are light blue. So not too much rendering and stuff going on. Looks like I finished render Goliath. Oh, lovely. Let's make his hair a bit more disheveled. He's about to throw down, man. Let me close those eyes slightly, make him a bit more vicious. Yeah, that'll do. There's a bit of that detail there. Okay, I think we're almost at the stage. So, for those regular viewers here, what do I always say? What do I always say?
Save!
And for those of you who are sketching,
Keep those pencils light.
Damn right. Let me just check on my comments here again. Something is coming, I think. Oh, Kerry said, you are a good teacher. Oh, thanks, Kerry. Much appreciated. I teach classes, Zoom classes, every Saturday morning. Okay, Saturday morning Singapore time, which is 9:30 a.m. here, which New York Eastern time, that would be 8:30 p.m. on a Friday evening, your time. And I teach again on a Wednesday evening at 6:30 Singapore time, which is, okay, no chance of you joining those lessons. That's 5:30 a.m. on Tuesday, on Wednesday morning for you. But yeah, I teach 2 regular classes every week. Kenny says, I'm going to use your approach of drawing prop first. Yeah, try that. If you try and you don't get on with it, by all means, you try something else. Something I often say to my students, or when I give talks, etc., is the only absolute in creativity is there probably are no absolutes. And what I mean by that is, no matter what methodology you see someone doing that you like, you're going to find someone that's doing the same thing totally differently, but you might just prefer the way that person did it. That means you should use that methodology. There's just no hard and fast rules to how you get something done in this whole creative arena. There's so many different ways to do the same thing, but I've tried quite a few over the years, and I share knowledge on stuff that I find helps me get closer to what I call a comic book artist. Kerry says, my issue is getting the head to look like it belongs to the body drawer. Okay, check your necks. Check your neck positions. But actually, Kerry, you're raising some good questions here, right? That's why I don't mind demoing this stuff, because this is all very useful. And this is called Draw-Along. So these are the kind of questions that I want. I'll show you a very common problem that I come across with students, right? I'm going to draw a head here at a 3/4 rotation. Now, of course, Karen, I have no idea what your specific problems are, but I'm going to hazard a guess that this might be one of them. It's one that I come across quite often. Now, remember, a head is basically a ball on a stick. So if you've got a head rotated like this, the neck, in effect, is displaced. It's over here somewhere. I'm drawing the skeleton. So if the neck is there, if we draw a shoulder here, that means the other shoulder is there. This, I find, gives students a lot of problems to visualize. Let's flesh this out. So let's find the center of the face. So the front of the face is here, and the side of the face is there. So if we imagine the jaw comes up, then it comes up, and you've got an ear. Now we flesh out the neck, which is there, which means the other side of the neck we can't actually see. So then the shoulder is going to come down here, and the other shoulder is there. Now this neck attachment at this angle, remember there's an infinite number of rotations you can have. But I found quite a few students that when they draw this angle, the head then starts to look a bit strange. Now I'm not sure if this is one of the angles that you have a problem with, but it's this point here. The neck actually, but it's foreshortening. A neck is in a constant state of foreshortening. This is a common problem that I've seen with some of my students. Your layout has really helped how I view it. I may not swear with next attempt. No. We're all good Christians here. I think it's very understandable. But the thing is, the more angry you get, the more inaccurate you might become. So yes, deep breath. I always say deep breath. I'm gonna get excited and want to show you. I presume you're in Madness Facebook group. I sure am. Yes, please do. I will feature it on the show next week. Okay. Oh, I'm in the UK. Don't know what time difference is. Oh, Kerry, you're from my home country. I think at the moment it's an 8-hour difference. So the time here is 8:16. It must be 12:15 in the morning there, if I'm not mistaken. You should be in bed. What are you doing watching this stupid man? You answered my problem. When I first tried Superman pose, his head didn't look like it belonged. I think I need to start the pose where you did. Okay, yes. Make sure the head is firmly within the shoulders. This part here. Well, you're going to make sure that you get his back. And if you get the eye line too straight, you may raise his head too much. Right? His eye line is going to be slightly downwards. Yeah, good. With another comment here. Christians can swear. Well, they can, but what will happen in the afterlife? I have no idea. Could be a nasty shock. Yes, you got it right. Yeah, it's a shoulders thing, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, very common. I have to keep an eye on that as well. I'm learning that's what I'm doing about this time. Yeah. Oh, okay. It's never too late to learn. Never too late to learn. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And 9:30, sorry, 12 a.m. It's not that late. It's not that late at all. Now, last thing, looking back at this Superman, knowing that it's Superman, and he's a 9 heads tall kind of geezer, I would actually make his head a bit smaller. Right, I'm going to take his head down to that. See, that's better now. His head was slightly too big. Jolly good. I've got 13 minutes left. Okay. Oh, none of the notes come in. Okay. Kerry's in fine voice tonight. What's this? God forgives, he knows me well. Are you sure, Kerry? Are you absolutely sure? Jolly good. You're sure it's worth being awake for? Oh, thanks, Kerry. That's much appreciated. I tell you what, I remember watching some YouTubers years ago, and one guy said something like, I don't care if I've only got one viewer. If I know the viewer wants me to do it, it feels worth it. And it's absolutely true. If you can help one person with anything, it's worth doing a stream. I definitely understand what that YouTuber meant now, years later. Good. So now we've got 2 Goliaths facing off. Now, of course, we won't see the leg of the other guy behind. But next week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to ink. Right? What we had before was, okay, here's the other guys that we went through. So if we look at Giant Man, was Giant Man? No, other Goliath was first. Excuse me. So let's switch this off. So remember, we started with a skeleton. Then we fleshed out. Then we started inking. Right, so let's get rid of the construction. The main contours. Now, I go through this process because when you come to digitally color, when you only have basic details in, you can drop in your colors much easier. You can paint bucket them. I'm assuming most people color digitally now, especially if they're doing comics. Of course, if you're doing commissions, that's real watercolor or oil colors, this doesn't apply to you. But digitally, yes. And I always make the point of saying that comic art is commercial art, which deals with deadlines. And of course, digital is the fastest. So a lot of what I'm sharing here is to help you work faster. Yeah? Good. Now, I'm going too fast there because when I did all of this, I got into rendering, didn't I? Yes. We did the rendering. Then we started to ink. Then we put in the blacks. And then we came in and we put in base colors. Base blue, base yellow, base flesh. And then we shaded using the technique I call dodge and burn. So that was Giant Man. Sorry, Goliath. Look at that costume, man. God, I love me some Silver Age comics, you know, and Bronze Age. Then we came to Giant Man. Let's have a look at his steps. You see what's going on with Giant Man. Hey, where's my sketching not here? Oh, I think I've I haven't copied my pencils over. Sorry, that's right, the original. It's a different file. But we went through the same stages for Giant Man. And you notice that the spotting, when I shaded Giant Man, I didn't do any hatching. I did a different style of rendering. Now, something I want to show you as well. If I switch off the blacks, can you see that Giant Man looks more like a painting? Right? Let me switch the blacks back on again. Right? If you remove the blacks, the dodge and burn technique that I use as well is very good for painting. So if you look at a lot of modern comics nowadays, there's not a lot of hatching going on. And the coloring is more in this discipline. Where there's no blacks, of course, it's faster to produce it. There's less penciling and less inking. But I'm old school, so I like blacks. If we go over to Goliath, right, we can have a look at the same thing here. I'm going to switch off the blacks. Now, you see the coloring has a different feel. Much more like, dare I say it, more modern comics, which have this very much less detailed look. Yeah? Good. So now we come to our clash of the Goliaths. So next week, we're going to start by inking. Now, I rendered Black Goliath first, so I will ink Goliath first next week. How long we got left? 7 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to have to wrap it up soon because I got a few trailers to run, a few shameless plugs. Let me just check to see if there's anything else here by anyone. Oh, okay, Kerry's back. I'm learning one. Okay, good. Oh, I think I read that already. What's this? I have really enjoyed this show. Oh, thanks. Kerry, spread the word. Spread the word. Tell the people. Wait the tongue and tell the people. Do you have your own comic? Yes, I do, Kerry. What you can do is go to Kickstarter. You'll see a trailer after this. And I have a comic named Supercross. And currently there's a Kickstarter for 5 different titles. It's published by Thunder Zone Comics over in the US. And I'm currently on number 5 of Supercross, which is on offer. But this is why I don't like plugging stuff like this, because you're asking people to spend money. And as Supercross is now on issue number 5, you can get the back issues, but of course that all costs money. But yes, you can go and look at the Kickstarter. And I've got Supercross on offer there at issue number 5. You can get back issues 1 to 4. And also I have a comic named Magaman that is currently on sale over at Fund My Comic. I'm going to put a trailer on for that in a moment as well. So if you're interested to support your friendly neighborhood comic artist, my wife says, right, I talk too much in the morning. Actually, she's right, I talk a lot of crap in the morning sometimes, but yes, watching the show is very much appreciated, of course. And of course, if you buy any of the comics, that would be even more appreciated. And in fact, on the Kickstarter that I just mentioned for Thunder Zone, we've just reached our second, what's it called? Stretch goal. So it's going pretty well over there. We're now on track for the third stretch goal. The second stretch goal actually involved me. You know, I'm a terrible salesman. In the Kickstarter, I produced a book called How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone, which follows all of these steps because over the years, I've done quite a lot of artwork for Thunder Zone comics. So I've compiled a lot of what I've done into a book, and that's actually on offer now as part of the Kickstarter as well, which is loads of exercises like this. And one of the stretch goals is a short comic that I did years ago that we're offering as a stretch goal add-on. I think that's what it is. And that comic is actually called a flashback team-up. And it was written by Chris Sims. He later went on to write X-Men 92. So even way back then, you're talking about the mid-2000s when I drew this story. I could tell he was a good writer. Classic Stan Lee style that he uses. And yeah, so if you get over to the Kickstarter, you can see all that good stuff. Thanks for asking, Kerry. That was a real shameless plug time. But yeah, I'm going to wrap up here now. As I mentioned, I've got a few trailers to run. Stuff on offer also from Madness Entertainment Group. And I'm not sure how many of you were awake this morning, but I also have another show here on the Madness Entertainment Group called Late Night Art Attack. It's normally me and Raul, and I'm going to run a trailer for what we did this morning. It's like a trailer for hopefully you can tune into that show. It's at 1 a.m. Eastern Time on a Saturday morning. So in England, that's going to be, give me a moment. It is 2 p.m. here. That's going to be 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, UK time, if you want to tune in for that as well. For all those residing in Great Britain, that's on a Saturday morning. So I'm going to run a few trailers here. Thanks once again for tuning in. And it's a really big thanks to Kerry for asking some wonderful questions and giving me a chance to demo things that I think can really help in our journey of learning how to draw. My name is Jerome Hinds. You can catch me on all social media at Jerome Hinds Art. And watch the trailers. Hope to win some of your support there. And I'll see you back here at the same time next week. Peace.
Ozzy, what are you doing? Come and have a look at this lovely book that was sent over.
You're wrapping in the burning, you know.
Oh, go on and spit the bat out your mouth. No one can understand you like that.
Better now. Say how 5 dentists and all.
Oh, well, that's not much better. Ozzy, why don't you sing to me? I can always understand you when you sing to me.
Fucking my brains. What is this my publisher sent me? Inked in black with art so sweet.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
If you like stories about truth, honor, and justice, then you should check out MAGA Man. It is Donald Trump as many now see him, the defender of justice and a warrior for peace through strength. MAGA Man is an all-American style 22-page comic book, so get over to fundmycomic.com and support the culture of truth, honor, and justice. With MAGA Man, the most needed hero of all. MAGA Man.
Thunder Zone Comics returns. 5 all-new comics, Sumo Boy, Weirdo, Marshall Strong, Big House Blues, and Super Cross, plus a free how to draw characters from the Thunder Zone. When you back all 5 new releases, the Kickstarter campaign is live now.
Thunder Zone Comics!
A-C-K, panels out and comic book knowledge. 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 Panels out and comic book knowledge.
Supa-Saturdays. 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 Draw-Along. Supa-Saturdays. Supa-Saturdays. Supa-Saturdays, draw-along. I love heroes, no matter their age and no matter their size. I wanna be a hero, that's why I love to draw and I wanna create. Supa-Saturdays, 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 draw-along.
If you missed the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. Madness Entertainment Group.